Anyway, it's huge what is happening, and we can only really guess at the nature of, one could say, the minds or the consciousness at the very top. So I want to get into that when we come back in a little bit. Yes, at the back.
I'm Paul King, an activist general across the river in southwest Washington. And I have seen a number of documentaries that have really piqued my interest about 9/11 not being, in fact, anything like the official story. And I just recently saw yours and wept. It is so good. It is so thorough. It is so well put together that it is the definitive, for me, film that approaches the problem. And while this talks, your part one is just demolitions. I went on your website and you said, I need to make enough money from this film to do parts 2 and 3. Part 2, hijacking and planes, and part 3, who benefits. And then I found out you were here, and I wanted to come from the Greater Portland Humanist meeting, because I've already seen the screening of the film, in order to be here in this discussion. And I said, I want to contribute money to you so you can have and make parts 2 and 3, which need to be made, and to make this a complete trilogy. And I really appreciate, and I just love you.
I always find it amazing that people say they wept, but I want you to know that when I watched, before we pressed the DVD back in 2006 in August, and I watched the master, because the whole disc has to be watched. There could be one little glitch, and if I blink when that glitch happens, it gets pressed 10,000, 15,000 times. So this was the first time I watched it in its entirety with the soundtrack, and at the very end, where those text messages come and it talks about consciousness, I cried for 10 minutes straight, just bawling, sobbing on the floor. And I said to myself, oh my God, I'm going to Austin, Texas in 2 weeks for this movie to open. I cannot fall apart like this in front of everybody. So I don't know what it did to me, why I reacted like that. And people tell me that every time they watch it, they cry. So maybe that's why it works. Maybe that's why it was meant to be, because it draws on something deep inside people that needs to be drawn on in order for people to start connecting. Because what is happening is we are being disassociated from each other and from our world. And it's neurological, and it's deliberate, and it's not because we're distracted, because we have too many choices. Things that I used to try to tell myself were the reasons. So my role here, if I was sent by, some force, and I was interviewed just 2 weeks ago by the BBC. They're going to come out to the U.S., and they're going to do the second installment of their conspiracy files. Did anyone see the first one, which was last year? They had in it Jim Fetzer, Dylan Avery, and of course they made us look very poor. And this producer interviewed me, and he asked me a lot of questions, and one of the questions was, I will do his accent. Now, I really want to know why you think that somebody would do such a thing. Why is it even possible that somebody would actually do something like this? And I said, the mistake you're making is some body. One person? A couple of people? No. I said, you know what? What you really have to be able to see these days is that all of history, as we have been taught it in our schools, as we find it in our newspapers and on your television stations, is not what it was. We've been set up. We're being deceived. 9/11 wasn't a singular event. It's a It's one in a long chain, and it goes back, back, back into time. This is not somebody who decided one day to do this to Americans. This is old, and we have to re-look at all of history. He did not have an answer. So, where was I right before that? BBC, yes. They're coming here, and they're going to interview me, Richard Jones, nice, Stephen Gage. Richard Gage and Stephen Jones. I don't know who else, but this piece is going to be about Building 7 alone. And I said to him, why don't you talk to Larry Silverstein? It was his building that came down in 6 seconds. It wasn't hit by a plane. What does he have to say about it? In many ways, this is like the Virgin Mary having a baby and nothing to say about it all through the whole Bible. So, besides, Larry Silverstein, we pulled the building because of the loss of life. But he needs to be interviewed. And the producer said to me, oh, I don't think he'd want to talk to me. And I said, of course he would want to talk to you. You're on his side. Anyway, so we'll see, where this goes. But I have to be prepared to look stupid, which was the goal of the other conspiracy piece, the History Channel. Has anyone seen that? Yeah, I have to admit, I've been too frightened to watch it yet, even though I'm at the very end. It's all vanity, so I never watched myself. But anyway, that piece was the producer assured me that he was going to do his best to make this very, very decent and true and correct. And I really believe that that was his desire. But I said to him, what about your superiors? And he did say, I am not on a high enough pay grade to control this thing. So that's the issue. We can, many people on local levels can be interested in reality, looking at reality as it really is working, the way that the pieces are fitting together. But the people up here can take those pieces apart and fit them together a whole other way. And we will accept it because we must. It's like your parents telling you, go to bed at 8 o'clock because I say so. So anyway, more questions. Yes?
In making this movie, have you ever tried to contact, ticket salespeople at the airlines where these supposed hijackers supposedly got on these planes, people that might be taking the tickets just before you board the airplane, officials of the FAA, any of this? Did you ever try to interview anybody like that might have inside information as to what was really going on that day?
Well, that would be part of the second movie. And, now we're going back many years. So I have not made those efforts. My job is to take the research